Is weird, odd, strange, or just plain bizarre is really your cup of tea? Then, the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast will give you that fix. Can't believe it? Well, listen for yourself as we deliver the strangest news you definitely won't find on CNN or Fox. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast.
Hey, thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Weird News Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mark Swan. I hope you're having a weird and wonderful week. I know I am. I just checked my Dogecoin that I invested in, and I've made a little bit of money. I think it is so weird that we're living in the reality where memes can make people money. It's also been a weird week for me because I live in Colorado, and anybody who lives in Colorado knows that the weather is consistently weird. It's so weird that it's not weird. Last week we were like in our shorts in the high 70s, and now there is so much snow on the ground. It's like winter never left. But I digress. We have a really great show for you today. We've got human-monkey hybrids. We've got marijuana license plates. We're going to be talking about the kidnapping of the world's largest rabbit. This is a sad story, but weird and interesting nonetheless. And to top it all off, at the end of the show, I have the top 5 weirdest times that the Simpsons have predicted the future. I've wanted to talk about this for so long, and I'm so glad that I have the outlet to do it. So, without further ado, let's hop right into it. When you think of the word chimera, what comes to mind? I'm a bit of a mythology person myself, so when I hear chimera, I think of the old Greek monster that was part lion, part goat, and part snake. But did you know that the term chimera is making its way into the scientific community? Specifically, geneticists use the term chimera to refer to hybrids of different animals. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because the Salk Institute out of Loyola, California, is one of the foremost firms working on chimeric hybrids. And just last Thursday, they announced that they have successfully injected human stem cells into macaque monkey embryos, effectively making a human-monkey hybrid. Yes, that's right. We're living in a dystopia of human-monkey hybrids. Now, before you go crazy over this, no, this does not mean that there are half human, half monkey people walking around Santa Monica Boulevard yet. The Salk Institute insists that these chimera embryos are strictly for the study of disease and organ transplants. Supposedly, the process is being used to observe advancements in cellular regeneration, and eventually, they hope to use chimeric embryos to grow whole, transplantable organs. The Institute has clarified that they have not moved any of their successful hybrid embryos to a uterus, so the idea that any of these embryos could grow into an actual animal are just not possible. If you were worried about the ethics, that is their official statement. However, the conversation of the ethics over the whole situation still comes into question. I mean, who's to say a more daring and less ethical laboratory won't create similar hybrids and actually try to create a new form of life? Lawmakers in Japan and China are currently working towards legislation that would allow the study of bringing actual human-animal hybrids into the world. It's seriously something out of a sci-fi novel. Now, whether you believe it's ethical or humane to have half-animal, half-human people roaming the streets, you have to admit that the idea is kind of fun. That's why I went to social media and asked, if you could mix your DNA with any animal, what would it be? The first response I got here was from Michelle from Colorado, and she said that she would be half moth because of the fluffy wings and no pooping. I feel that. If my moth biology serves me, I think they don't poop because they don't eat. Feel free to correct me in the comments, but I'm pretty sure moths don't eat, and after they turn into moths, they die. So, Michelle, very beautiful thought, but, we don't want you dying out there. Ryan from Ohio says that he would be half giraffe, so he can see over the top of stuff. That is basic and beautiful in its simplicity. Ryan, I have to imagine that you're kind of a shorter dude, if I had to guess. So maybe having a long neck to see over stuff is your fantasy. Jenny out of Colorado Springs, Colorado says that she would be a red panda, duh. Or a red panda, duh. And I can only assume that is because she thinks red pandas are cute, and who am I to disagree? But Jenny, I'm sure you are cute just as you are, without having any sort of red panda DNA. Then there is, of course, a reply here to that particular comment that is 2 red pandas playing in the snow, and yes, that is cute. Let's see. Sam from Denver says, probably a turtle for the ocean, and I love that. My favorite turtles are sea turtles. It's kind of sad how they get eaten when they're babies, but I mean, it's still pretty cool if they get to grow up. You live a long time, you get to surf the ocean, you get to be like Finding Nemo, get to have the surfer voice. You know, I'm for it. I'm with the turtle hybrid. That might be mine as well. Alexander from Kansas says, octopus, because more arms would be nice, and they have a far superior implementation of more arms compared to creatures like crabs or insects. Very succinct answer. I love it. I've heard certain stories, whether they have any scientific truth to them or not, say that if humans weren't the apex species to evolve throughout history, then it would have been cephalopods like octopuses. And being half octopus would be pretty cool. There's certain octopuses who can like disguise themselves as other sea life so they can get food or get away from predators. I mean, they got the ink thing. They're fast. They're smart. That's pretty cool. Christian from Colorado says he would be half rabbit, so he can be the same animal as his Chinese zodiac symbol. That's a pretty cool answer. I think half rabbit would be a real interesting mix up there. You got the speed, you have the veracity. They're smart creatures. They're cute. We're actually going to be talking about rabbits later, and we'll get to that. Victor says, following up on the Chinese zodiac idea, that he would be part horse. And then he says, this is just a hair away from asking, what animal would you choose for your fursona? And any listener that doesn't know what that's in reference to, your fursona is like your furry personality, if you were to get into that whole subculture. And he's not wrong. I didn't think about it when I posed the question, but it's true. I'm basically asking the question of the universe, what would your fursona be? I was thinking about this question for myself, even though I posed it, and then I didn't really have an answer. But I think about it, and I think if I was half anything, I would probably be half cat. Then I would be cute. People would love me. I could sleep all day, and no one would care. I would have night vision. That'd be pretty cool. I mean, I'd have a tail. Nah, we're getting back into the fursona thing. Now, the Salk Institute does admit that one of their big concerns with this study is if they were to allow their experimental embryos to last any longer or live on any longer, that it's very possible that the human stem cells in the macaque embryos would migrate to the cells that form the monkey's brains, possibly giving the monkey that it would grow into human qualities. Maybe that sounds cool if you think about it, but there's definitely some concerns there. There's 4 words that come to mind when I think about such a prospect. Planet of the Apes. Of course, when that book was written and the movie was made, nobody would ever think there would be super intelligent monkeys. But with the Salk Institute's studies and findings, it almost seems like it could be a possibility. Monkeys are crazy strong, and they are far better at braving the wilds than humans are. The only thing that we have over them is our intelligence, and I'm slightly concerned by the prospect of having smart monkeys in the world. I mean, didn't we pound it into people's brains why this shouldn't be the case? However it may be, I don't think I ever thought I'd be living in a world where it could be a possibility that we would be walking amongst half human, half animal people. It's cool. It's a cool idea. But where do we draw the line ethically? I think that's the big question. Would we allow a half frog, half human into the Olympic long jump competition? Would we allow a half gorilla, half human onto the NFL to be a linebacker? That seems kind of dangerous. Now, however, like I said, Salk Institute has no plans to bring any of these embryos to actual fruition, putting them inside like a mother monkey and actually breeding a monkey human hybrid. But it just kind of makes you think. And worse off, I don't mean to get like dark with it, but what if you make this human monkey and it feels terrible pain because the biologies of those two types of creatures just sort of conflict? There's a lot of conversations to be had here, and they're happening faster than we anticipated. Like, once again, Japan recently put into legislation that they would allow these sorts of DNA crossbreeding between animals and humans, and it's easy to think of fantastic scenarios, but you might be bringing creatures into the world that just like don't fit or aren't going to have a good time. You think about it any harder than that, it kind of puts you in a bad mood, makes you sad. I wonder what like PETA would have to say about that, or any sort of animal rights activists would have to say about such a situation. However, I do want to applaud the idea of lab-grown organs for replacement and for medical use. I think that's a really cool idea. I know that they've been doing things with like lab-grown meat as far as that ethicality is concerned, but I really like the idea of them growing some lungs for a person who can't breathe, or a liver for somebody who needs a liver transplant, or kidneys or anything, and you sort of eliminate the middleman of like hoping someone donates those items or loses their life and their organs are given to that sort of research. So good on you, Salk Institute. I applaud what you're doing, and I always love scientific advancement, but please, for goodness sake, please don't bring scary monkey human chimeras onto the planet to take us over. You are, of course, listening to the GSMC Weird News Podcast. Hey, if you like hearing this, please consider listening to some of our other podcasts. We have dozens upon dozens for any topic that you could possibly imagine, and they're all wonderful to listen to. And hey, I'm your host, Mark Swan. You can find me on social media, Twitter, Facebook. Please check out my website, markandrewswan.com. I am a videographer, storyteller, writer, and I am actually in the process of writing my fantasy novel, Death in Human Resources, and I put it out every week, chapter by chapter, on deathinhumanresources.com. So hey, after the break, just in time for this next Tuesday, we're talking about custom marijuana license plates and how much people would pay to boast their cannabis usage on their cars. And, of course, later in the show, we've got stolen giant rabbits and the top 5 times the Simpsons have predicted the future. This is the GSMC Weird News Podcast. We'll be back after the break.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back to the GSMC Weird News Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Swan, same as I ever was. Hey, be sure to stick around until the end of the show when we talk top 5 weirdest times the Simpsons have told the future. It is creepy. It's eerie. If you apply a little bit of logic to it, it makes a little bit more sense, but it's still like one of my favorite things to talk about. I'm not a huge Simpsons guy anymore, but I definitely used to love the show, and I love hearing about these weird sort of like temporal changes in the timescape. And how did this TV show predict this strange going on? And did they predict it, or were they trying to warn us? It's a whole thing. We'll get into it at the end of the show. Now, before the break, we were talking weird human-monkey hybrids and how close we are to that bizarre reality. But now, let's go a bit lighter for a little bit. This story comes from my neck of the woods in Colorado. A 420 auction is being held to sell off the rights of cannabis-themed license plates. There's such a resigned sigh because like I'm not a marijuana guy, but for some reason I still live here in Colorado, and marijuana is everywhere. It is just part of the culture of the land, and you can either find people who are really chill about it, or you can find obsessive people who marijuana is their life. After legalizing the plant for recreational use in 2012, the state has become the sort of unofficial capital for cannabis. And boy, have they embraced that title. Oh boy. I'll get people who are mad at me for not smoking. That's such a strange thing. And I'm just not into it. I don't really want to give my opinion on it. I think it is, you know what? You do you. You do you. We all have our things. And if you want to come to Colorado, and smoke, who am I to judge? But you cannot throw a rock around here without hitting a dispensary. And if I had $1 for every time one of my friends told me about some new strain or wax or shatter or vape or dab, or you get the idea. See, like I don't even use the stuff, and I know all the terminology. It's ridiculous. Anyway, if I had $1 for every time that happened, I would be a rich man. I would probably open my own dispensary and get even richer. Like seriously, it is such a cash cow for the state. It kind of put Colorado on the map. I'm not gonna lie. I was here before it was legalized, and there was such a push for it to happen, and it really changed things for us. Like people know where Colorado is now. It's not just the big square state that's home to like the lamest football team ever. And I can't deny that cannabis has ultimately been good for the state. The heavily taxed sales of the herb have led to all sorts of great infrastructure and money and just good stuff for the state for a whole. I've seen like communities be built on cannabis tax money. I mean, like our schools are flourishing because any sort of cannabis sales tax goes into our schools, goes back into our infrastructure. It is really, really, really good. And this charity is no different. All proceeds from the license plate auction are going to the Disability Funding Committee, which is just awesome. I mean, let's turn other people's good time into money for those who need it. I think that's awesome. I really appreciate really appreciate what our state government is doing as far as how they're handling where this money goes. Really turned a whole lot of things around. I mean, I can't stop saying good things about it. Now, this is, once again, this is a state auction, and they are auctioning off the rights to 14 license plates with numbers, with registry numbers like, so I'm reading my notes here, and it just makes me laugh. Registry numbers like Bong, B-O-N-G, and Ganja. Classy. I'm not sure if saying those words goes beyond like our PG rating here. But I seriously hear these words every day just talking to my friends. So I'm trying to think of the type of person I would have to be to want Bong on my license plate. I mean, yes, cannabis is legal here, but like, isn't that just gonna attract a police officer? Like, just, hey, if that's what you're proud of, good on you. But it's just not my thing. It's like, I wouldn't make my license plate say beer, because I just feel like that would make me a target. Now, some of the plates have already been bid on for thousands of dollars. That's awesome. It also begs the question, who is that about marijuana with that much money, and how how much of that is your life that you want to advertise it to the world? It strikes me as so crazy. I'm not being judgmental. Just once again, it's not my thing. And hey, if you got the money, maybe you're spending your stimulus on it. Like, shoot, giving your stimulus to charity, and you get a comedy license plate in turn. Like, good for you. Now, it is important to note that if you were to want to find this auction in the next couple of days and bid on your own license plate, if you are a Colorado, a Colorado citizen, you still need to register the plates. This isn't the DMV taking care of all of your licensing woes. This is really just buying the right to use these custom plates. The auction ends on Tuesday, April 20th at 4:20 p.m., which, LOL, if we have younger listeners and they don't know what that means, I'm not going to be the person to explain it to you. But it is a very important number to people who like imbibing cannabis. This is such a weird thing. Like, custom license plates were such a fad. I think it was something that, don't quote me on this, I'm not a historian here, but it's a fad that I think started in the 80s of custom license plates. And it's just basically you're paying way too much just to have like a goofy thing on the tail of your car. That being said, when I was a kid, I wanted a custom license plate. I always asked my mom and dad, hey, what do you think? We could get something really funny on the back of your truck, Dad. They never went for it, and now that I'm older, I understand why. I don't even remember what I wanted it to say. I just remember thinking that a custom license plate would be so cool. I didn't even drive. And now I'm a boring adult, and I would never pay for that sort of thing. I mean, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'll use that stimulus money, and I'll get like herb or something. I don't know. Once again, I'm not a smoker. So, but you know, this did get me thinking. If you could have the custom license plate of your dreams, what would it be and why? So I went to social media again, asked the question. I had a lot of fun responses, and I kind of want to go through some of them. A couple of them here don't make sense, so I'm going to do my best to try and make it through. Matt from Maine says, I'd want my license plate to be changeable on the fly so I could type profanities to the jerks behind me. And then he put the thumbs up emoji, which I love this answer. I'm really surprised that this isn't a thing, and I almost think it is. I not a changeable license plate, but rather just sort of like some sort of communicative device, like a marquee that you could put on your car, that you could like text to, or like do like a speech to text sort of thing. So you could be like, "Hey, bump off! Don't cut me off, jerkhole." And actually, Shane here from Colorado responded to Matt's comments and said they have windshield mounted units for doing just such things. That's awesome. I am a defensive driver, but boy, do I get angry sometimes. So the malleable, ever-changing license plate that I could use to curse at people who I don't like how they're driving is, like, amazing. Let's see. Alex from Kansas says that his custom license plate would be NCC-1701 because I'm a huge nerd. Now, I had to look this up. I pretended to be cool and know what he was talking about, but I looked it up, and this is actually the registry number for the Starship Enterprise from Star Trek. And all I have to say to that is, yes, Alex, you are a nerd. But that's cool nonetheless. I have to assume that probably exists somewhere. Somebody probably has that license plate number. But good on you. May the force be with you, or, secret. I did that on purpose to tick you off. Let's see. We have some comments here from Sam. His is actually not safe for work, so I'm not going to repeat that one on air. But it does involve the number 420, and I think Sam was probably aware of this particular auction. So good on you, Sam. I hope you get this license plate someday. Christian from Colorado says 6669, which nice and satanic, and then also a little raunchiness at the end there. So good on you, Christian. And this is actually the second of 2 666 license plate suggestions. Eric from Texas says that his custom license plate would say 666th wave. Maybe you're some sort of fire surfer or something along the lines. Our final comment is from Tony, and I love this. He didn't give us a custom license plate that he would want, but he said, "I took this picture in 2014. I don't know why anyone wants this." And then it is simply a picture of a truck with the Nebraska license plate, STD Life. Wow. I don't even know how to respond. I have no words. It is completely ridiculous. But good on them, I suppose. I've been thinking about this whole time. I just, it seems so impractical to me, and like I'm just such a money saver guy, and I think it's like $150 to like even register for custom license plates, and I think it can get reversed or they can reject you, and it's like, what? But I'm trying to be a little light with it. I'm trying to think of what I would have for my custom license plate, and it would probably be something like a meme. It would probably be like WTF LOL or LMAO LMAO 999. I don't know. I'm such an adult, such a loser. When did I stop being cool? I bet young me would hate me right now. I don't know. So you are listening to the GSMC Weird News Podcast. Be sure to hit us up on social media. Tell us what your dream custom license plate would be. And also, I don't know, I still want to know what people would be if they could be half animal. I think that's really cool. Just as long as you're not using it to take over the world, or as long as you're not in immense amounts of pain. Anyway, look us up on social media. After the break, got kind of a sad one for you. A record-breaking giant bunny has been kidnapped. And it made me so sad, and I really wanted to talk about it, and I'm just hoping that whoever took this poor creature is listening to this podcast and feels compelled. But we'll get back to that after the break. That, and afterwards, my top 5 times that The Simpsons accurately predicted the future. This is the GSMC Weird News Podcast. We will be right back.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
What's up, everybody? You are listening to the GSMC Weird News Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Swan, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. We have a ton of great podcasts, but if you're anybody like me, the weird news is where it's at. And I can only assume that today's news has tickled your weird funny bone. We just got done talking about our fantasy custom license plates. We were exploring the weird world of chimeric hybrid human animals. We've gotten scientific with it. We've gotten fun with it. Unfortunately, we're moving on to a more somber note from the UK. Right on the heels of Easter's holiday, and that's what bums me out about this, man, is like, you're going to do something like this after Easter. Anyway, let me get to it. Annette Edwards from a village called Stoughton, UK, is offering a reward for the return of her giant rabbit, Darius. Man, I'm going to put this poor rabbit's picture up on social media so anybody listening can come and find it and see it, because this bunny is so cute, but he's also huge. But you might be asking yourself, what is so newsworthy about some rabbit getting stolen? Well, Darius, the continental giant rabbit, that's his breed or his species, is continental giant rabbit out of UK. Darius currently holds the Guinness World Record for world's largest rabbit. Now, how big could the world's largest rabbit be? Well, so according to these articles, Darius measures in at a whopping 4 feet 3 inches long and is over 20 pounds. That's like a bobcat, dude. That is like a bobcat that is as heavy as a small sack of potatoes. That is a big, big rabbit. Darius, maybe you're listening. I don't know if rabbits can comprehend podcasts, but boy, what are you eating? Annette did not divulge that information to us in the article that I read, but I have to assume that is like the work of some real careful genetic planning and just like really interesting diet. And unfortunately, Darius has gone missing, and they think that he has been kidnapped. Police and press are working hard on this story, and as of this recording, Darius has not been returned, nor has there been any sort of clues or security measures in place to find out what had happened to the giant rabbit. Edwards, who is a breeder of rabbits, is obviously distressed with Darius's disappearance and was originally offering a 1,000-pound reward. But since there's been no heads or tails of it, excuse the pun, Edwards has since upped the reward to 2,000 pounds. She really wants her bunny back, and who are we to blame her? Edwards also insists that Darius's disappearance was an act of theft and not just the bunny escaping. And that begs the question, why does Annette think that the bunny has been kidnapped? Like, why is she insisting upon this? There wasn't a whole lot of details. But I guess I can't tell if as a rabbit breeder, like, your reputation would go down the toilet if your prize bunny escaped without you knowing. Like, do you automatically lose cred as in the bunny breeding world? Is she just trying to uphold her reputation? Think about this. Or is there foul play afoot? Now, I'm not going to accuse Annette of anything, but I think doing something like paying a common thug to kidnap your award-winning giant rabbit would be a good way to drum up publicity. Maybe Annette is trying to franchise out her bunny breeding business, and she already had the world's biggest bunny, and now the world's biggest bunny has been stolen, and maybe he'll be triumphantly returned, or maybe he'll just show up one day, and then Disney will approach and they'll make a gross CGI movie about it. I'm only joking. But really, who steals a bunny? Like, you have to be the cruelest person on earth to pull off something like that. Is there like some sort of black market on giant rabbit trade? Like, are they like making lucky rabbit's feet still? And like the bigger the rabbit's feet, the bigger the luck or something? I don't know. That's some witchy stuff. I don't want to get into it. Either way, whoever you are, whoever stole Darius, whatever mafia syndicate that came in and pulled off this caper, you are a really evil dude. Who knows? Maybe they have a recipe for really big rabbits too. or think about this. Okay, hold on. The conspiracy only grows thicker. Maybe Darius was taken by the Salk Institute, and they're hoping to make giant rabbit-human hybrids. Christian from Colorado, you said you wanted to be a rabbit hybrid. Did you take Darius? You have to tell me. You legally have to tell me. Hit me up on social media. But hey, Salk Institute, if you're listening, return Darius. His mother misses him. Now, Darius's record-breaking size got me wondering about some other record large animals. So I went to the Guinness World Records website just to do a little research on my own. First, since if you haven't gotten the word from my previous segments, kind of a cat person. So I was wondering, what is the world's largest cat? And that title goes to Hercules, the liger. He is the Guinness World Record holder for largest cat. He is 10 feet 11 inches long, which I can't even comprehend right now. And he weighs 922 pounds. This is a predatory cat that's half the size of a tractor. What do you feed that thing? Don't ever put me in the same room with something like that, because I'm going to be terrified. I'm going to probably give up. Or I might give him a big old hug. I've heard that ligers are kind of docile. Honestly, up until a couple years ago, I didn't even think ligers were a real thing. I thought it was a Napoleon Dynamite joke. By the way, remember Napoleon Dynamite? I sure am dating myself. I'm not turning 34 in a month. No, I'm a child. I'm a child who loves to draw ligers. But Hercules, congratulations to you for holding that record. I hope your bones and muscles are okay. Of course, since we looked up the world's largest cat, I had to look on the other end of the spectrum for the world's largest dog, and the Guinness record holder for tallest dog is... I'm so excited to read this, you guys, and I'll tell you why. The tallest dog by Guinness's standards is Freddy, a Great Dane, who measures 40.75 inches tall and lives in England. What is it about the UK and these giant animals? Like, what are you people doing? Is there radiation there? I don't know. I'm not accusing you of anything. But man, you got some big animals. You got big rabbit, big Dane. And I'm so happy to hear this, because Danes are big animals anyway. I already knew that. But I am actually the proud owner of a Great Dane. Shout out to Dexy. He loves listening to podcasts, so I think he'll be excited to hear his name. He is such a shy, beautiful little boy, but good Lord, is he big. And I am almost thankful that he doesn't realize that he's so big. I think he thinks he's a little tiny baby Chihuahua. He's actually a rescue. I think he probably had some abuse or something in his puppy history. And so when I got him, he is definitely a scaredy dog. Anything scares him. Trash cans scare him. The TV scares him. Clapping scares him. Wearing a hat scares him. And I think if he maybe was well aware of his mass, he would probably be a bit scarier. So I'm thankful to that. But he has got nothing on Freddy the Dane from Essex, England. It says here that he has a diet of minced beef, 2 pounds of minced beef, casserole, steak, and liver every day. What? Put that dog on a diet. Also, that sounds expensive. That sounds more expensive than a marijuana license plate, man. I just don't understand. But good on you, Freddy. It sounds like you are living a good life. Shout out to you, Freddy. I hope you're a podcast Great Dane fan like my Great Dane is. Freddy also apparently eats sofas. Probably not as good of a diet as minced beef. And that he has destroyed over 26 couches with his sister Floor. There's not a picture of Floor, but I see Freddy, and Freddy's the most beautiful boy. And I know the burden of the couch-destroying Great Dane. I'm glad it's something that transcends the pond. So, Freddy, good on you. Hopefully you do something with that record. Of course, I had to get a little more general with it and simply look up the world's largest animal, and I think I knew this already, but I wanted to share the information and confirm it anyway. The Guinness World Record for largest animal, but really just like the biologically acknowledged largest animal, is of course the blue whale. One of my favorite animals, because like, what? Like, how does this thing exist? It's almost a dinosaur. The heaviest recorded female blue whale was over 190 tons, which is 418,877 pounds, and it was 90 feet 6 inches long. It was caught in the Southern Ocean in 1947. I don't know how you catch a blue whale. I don't really want to think about it. But blue whales are such wonderful creatures. Like, really, just if you haven't watched a documentary on them, they're so beautiful, so gentle, like, and so intelligent. It reminds me of a sad story of the whale who sang at a different frequency than the rest of its pod, and therefore it got lost. And it's known as the world's loneliest whale because it can't sing to other whales and have those whales hear it. It's very sad. Why did I bring this up? I'm sad now. Why do I do this to myself? Come and find these depressing rabbit kidnapping stories and think they're interesting. Certainly is weird. Once again, whoever's out there who took Darius, the world's largest rabbit, please, for all things good and holy, just return him. Like, there's no reason. Like, do you really just want the ransom that bad? Like, I don't know what's going on. Ooh, what if it's a rival rabbit breeder? That would be crazy. Oh, man, now I do want Disney to make a horrible CGI mess about this story. Well, we are reaching the end of the program, and it has just been a hoot hanging out with you guys and talking about all the wonderful, weird, kind of horrible things today. Once again, please hit us up on social media. Check out our other great GSMC podcasts, especially if you want to share the weirdest custom license plate or animal hybrid that you could possibly think of. I'm here to listen to it. Maybe I'll bring it up again in a future episode, but it has just been such a pleasure talking about these things. When we get back from the break, we are heading into our final segment, which I am so excited to talk about. It's like, some of these will give you tingles, man. It's like, it's weird if you haven't looked this stuff up before. And I'm going through 5, but there are dozens of predictions. They're not even predictions. They're just jokes that the Simpsons made that ended up being true. And they're true in such a weird and creepy manner that you're like, what is going on here? But I digress. We're going to get back to that after the break. I'm so excited to talk with you guys. Once again, this is the GSMC Weird News Podcast. I'm so excited. I'm Mark Swan, and we will see you after the bump.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back to the GSMC Weird News Podcast. I am your host, Mark Swan, and it has just been an absolute pleasure. I cannot bring it up enough how awesome it has been talking with you guys today. Once again, please hit us up on social media. Please use whatever podcasting app or program that you use and look up some of our other great GSMC podcasts. There's a love one, there's a sports one, there's a relationships one, there's a sex one, there's an MMA one, there's technology, futurism, anything. I am so humbled to be among a bunch of great hosts talking about a bunch of great topics. But I'm most excited to be here with you talking weird news. I love the weird, I love the wonderful, I love the wild. And I'm really excited for next week because the world just keeps getting weirder and weirder. I mean, we're gonna get into that. Like some of these Simpsons predictions had to do with actually real recent current events. And you know, with that said, I'd rather just get into it. We teased it the whole show. This is my top 5 instances the Simpsons have predicted current events. Now, I'm not bringing to light some sort of like weird information. It's like this isn't some sort of study on my own. Like this is pretty well known. Like it's no secret that the Simpsons have an uncanny ability for predicting certain events that have come to pass. Now, when you think about things like this, you always have to use a little bit of salt and scrutiny here. It's not as magical of an event as you might think. The show's been on for 30 years, and it's had some of the most prolific comedy writers on staff. I mean, like Conan O'Brien got his start on The Simpsons, like Matt Groening, obviously the creator, David X. Cohen, who's a mathematical genius. He went on to make Futurama or write for Futurama. Like that guy, I can't even add 2 or 2 normally, and this guy is like making like theorems as part of his jokes and then proving them, and then it ends up going into the registry of like theoretical physics. It's ridiculous. I mean, just thinking about that, like there's so many famous people who got their start on The Simpsons. Once again, I bring up Conan O'Brien because that guy's my hero. Like he's who I want to be in life. He got me into the idea of hosting. I actually have a friend who used to do flyers for my old band. And he's now an artist on the show. Shout out to you, Sam Grimberg. Hope you're doing well. I hope the job's all it's cracked up to be. Gosh, if I remember correctly, like Simpsons was his dream job. Definitely look him up. Sam Grimberg, good artist, does some independent comics. Cool dude. Congratulations to you. Anyway, what I mean to say is when you have a show that's been around for as long as it has, with the smartest writers who are doing their best to parody and bring satire to the real world, they are bound to call a thing or two. It's just going to happen. I mean, the show has been around forever. And like you just have guys who are thinking about the pulse of society and current events. Like they're going to predict a thing or two, or maybe it's something different. I don't know. I don't want to say either way. Nevertheless, The Simpsons have gained notoriety for showing jokes on episodes that somehow reflect real world events that happen in the future. And I'm here to share with you my top 5 strange instances of that happening. Let's start with a real good one. Number 5. And I'm looking at my notes here, and I'm just big sigh because this is like, this is just the world we live in. This happened. My number 5 is The Simpsons predict Donald Trump's presidency. It's hard to get those words out. I'm not going to say either way if I'm an opponent or if I was a supporter of Trump, but man, was it a weird 4 years. In season 11, episode 5, an episode called Bart to the Future has us look into The Simpsons' future, where, most notably, Lisa, the daughter, and I apologize, I'm explaining The Simpsons like you don't know what The Simpsons is if you don't watch some of the older seasons. Those are the better ones. I'm just going to explain like it's a layman, but honestly, like it's ubiquitous. Like you know what The Simpsons is, even if you're not a fan. Anyway, in this episode, Lisa becomes the president of the United States. Good for her. She is a smart kid, so that makes sense. But the interesting thing to note here is the throwaway line she says while she's in the Oval Office. She's sitting at the presidential desk. She's talking to her gubernatorial staff, and she says, and I quote, "We inherited quite the budget crunch from President Trump." Now, once again, I want to stress that The Simpsons don't have some sort of oracle on staff. This isn't fortune telling. Before he was finally elected, like Donald Trump had talked about wanting to run for office several times throughout the years. I think it was something none of us really took seriously. And I mean, that held true up until he actually did win. Like, no one I knew thought he would have pulled that off, but he did. Obviously, we're now living in that world. You may be a Trump fan, you may not, but the man always was sort of a joke to the Simpsons staff, and this was just another dig at the big man. I mean, you remember he was a reality star. He showed up on he showed up on the WWE and was in a Home Alone movie. He was always just kind of a character. Still, it's kind of creepy to watch this clip in retrospect. I mean, it was really just the Simpsons staff taking a dig at him, but I guess the last laugh is on him because he did it. He pulled it off. And the Simpsons were there to make a joke about it before it happened. All right, number 4, the Simpsons predict the Siegfried and Roy tiger attack. If you're a younger listener, you may not remember Siegfried and Roy, but they were two flamboyant Las Vegas wild animal performers who most famously would do tricks, sort of like circus tricks almost, with white tigers and white lions. It was their whole thing. It was weird, which is perfect for the weird news show. But they were also the butt of several jokes on Simpsons. And in season 5, episode 5, they are parodied by way of two wildlife performers, Ernst and Horn, who are obviously parodies, who are obviously like just clown versions of Siegfried and Roy. And they are attacked by one of their stage tigers. It's actually a really funny sequence. The tiger looks like a fool. He's on a unicycle. The Siegfried and Roy characters go, "See, he's so much happier than when he was suffering out in the savannah." The tiger then goes into this sort of like introspective memory of him like living just his best life out in the wild, and then like Siegfried and Roy come up and shoot him with a tranq dart, and then they steal him. And so I'm sorry, it's just watch the show. But the tiger gets mad. He hops off the unicycle and he just like tears Siegfried and Roy to shreds. It's a really funny sequence. And 10 years later, Roy Horn of Siegfried and Roy would be attacked by one of their tigers during a live show. It actually happened. It was devastating. Roy survived, thankfully, but the event actually caused the pair to cancel their live act in Vegas, and eventually they retired from show business. Like they definitely were advocates for the cat. They didn't want the cat to be put down, but it did happen. It really put a damper on the brand, I guess you could say. And of course, the Simpsons depiction of this attack wasn't exactly like psychic like prediction here. Like Siegfried and Roy worked with dangerous tigers. Like they did it for tens of years. Like it was bound to happen. Like, sorry to burst your bubble. But something like that, it's just gonna happen. Like, let's not mess with nature, you guys. Hey, like maybe let's not like cross a tiger with a human. Like that's terrifying. Name him Siegfried. All right. Number 3, the Simpsons predict a 3-eyed fish. I really like this one because it comes from the older seasons of The Simpsons, and those are the seasons I prefer. I don't think I'm I don't think I'm a minority in this opinion. Like, The Simpsons has been on for way too long. I'm not going to give my suggestion either way, but a lot of people prefer the older seasons of The Simpsons, and yet they still keep going. They're still a successful brand. They're still pumping out seasons every single year. They're like on season 31 or something like that. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. However, in the in the second season, if you've been watching the show for a long time, you may remember Blinky the three-eyed fish, a mutant fish found out of the waterways beyond Springfield's nuclear power plants. Blinky was, of course, a gag commenting on the harm to wildlife that can come from the waste runoff of power plants. It's just... That show really liked riffing on the idea of the nuclear family by taking it a bit literal, and Springfield was this like nuclear powered town. Unfortunately, led to some mutant animals, and Blinky became sort of an unofficial mascot for the show, and still shows up in Simpsons merchandise. I don't think he's really on the show much anymore, maybe making a cameo, but there's definitely like plushies. He shows up in the comics. He's like in the video games and stuff like that. He's a gag. He's always been there. However, in 2011, Blinky got himself a real-life counterpart when a fisherman caught a three-eyed wolffish off a reservoir in Argentina. You can probably guess, by virtue of what this segment is, that this reservoir in Argentina was connected to a runoff of a nuclear power plant. And I'm not going to suggest you go find a picture of that fish, but it's something. And it's especially something made even weirder by the fact that The Simpsons predicted it. Of course, here's the deal. Not some psychic thing. Of course it was going to happen. I mean, nuclear, as far as I understand it, is still one of the safest forms of energy, but it's not without its downfalls. One of that being its effects on wildlife. And I have to imagine that Blinky was having a better time than that fish. Anyway, number 2, The Simpsons predict the NSA spying scandal. This is where we start to get into the freaky territory, my friends. This doesn't actually come from a episode of The Simpsons. This comes from the 2007 Simpsons movie. Remember, they had a movie. I don't remember if it was good. But in the movie, the family is on the run after uncovering a government plot to destroy Springfield. Oh no! I remember Tom Hanks shows up at some point and like tries to mitigate the bad press. Anyway, that's a tangent. There's a scene where Marge, Bart, and Lisa are on a bus, presumably like constantly on the run, trying not to get caught by the government and punished. And they're discussing that they need to tell the world of the government's evil plan, when Lisa shushes her mother, saying that they shouldn't be talking about these things so openly. Marge says, "Oh, come on." I'm not going to do the voice. She says, "Oh, come on. It's not like the government is listening on everybody's conversations." Cut to a big cube gray building that just says NSA on it. And you zoom into that, and that's basically exactly what's going on. There are hundreds of employees listening in on phone calls and online conversations, and one of them just happens to be using an NSA robot to track down Marge and Bart and Lisa. And it is a really like cute kind of creepy gag, but you have to remember that this happened in 2007, and Edward Snowden didn't become a whistleblower on the NSA until 6 years later. So this was just a joke, and then it became totally true. Whether like somebody on the Simpsons staff is privy to some sort of information, I don't know. Or if it was just sort of something you could just be like, yeah, the government's probably spying on us, and they would use the NSA to do so. But before that, we had no concrete information or evidence that was happening. It's freaky. It's freaky. And it leads us into our number 1 Simpsons prediction. And this one is really eerie. We'll get into it. We'll have a little bit of discussion on it, but it's super eerie. The Simpsons predict 9/11. This one's a bit of a stretch, and you can very easily Google the picture that this is in reference to. But in the 1997 episode In the City of New York versus Homer Simpson, a moment alludes to the 9/11 attacks on the World Trade Center. And I'm just looking at this picture, and it's a real quick gag. It's basically them just trying to make fun of like things being cheap or expensive in New York, but Bart is in front of a poster of New York where it says New York, $9. There's a big 9. And then there is, next to the 9, there is the silhouette of the Twin Towers. And the Twin Towers make a very obvious shape of an 11. In hindsight, this definitely is a freaky image. It really honestly is a picture that says New York 9/11 with a picture of the Twin Towers. This got a lot of people talking. I think you could find some crazier channels on the internet that said that this was some sort of warning by like the Simpsons, who were privy to some sort of information. Of course, that's not the case. I mean, who knows for real? But this is certainly one of the most fascinating. I invite you to go I invite you to go watch the episode. It's a funny one. Or at the very least, I invite you to go take a look at this picture because it's freaky, man. It's freaky. Probably the freakiest out of all of these. Once again, if you're the type of person like me who likes to suspend their disbelief and kind of jump into the idea that there's some sort of conspiracy going on where we know about things before they happen, or we're planning things on stuff like that. Like, I don't really want to get on the messiness of like 9/11 conspiracies. But as far as the Simpsons are concerned, this is kind of like a lighthearted one that ended up being a little bit like too much. Regardless, please, there are plenty of articles out there. Google them. There are dozens upon dozens of instances of the Simpsons making a joke or a gag that ends up happening with a sort of like uncanny accuracy in the future, sometimes years and years ahead. Like that 9/11 thing, that gag happened in 1997, and there's a lot of instances of that. Anyway, sorry, I got riled up when it comes to these sorts of things. We've reached the end of the hour, and it has been just such a joy and a pleasure speaking with you today. Once again, please look up GSMC on your podcast provider of choice. We are everywhere, and we could be yours at the click of a button for free on any topic that might interest you. My name is Mark Swan. Look me up on Twitter. Look me up on Facebook. I need friends. That's just been a year of isolation and just like not interacting with anybody. And I'd love to have a conversation about your weird and wacky stuff. Also, be sure to send me on social media like weird articles, weird ideas, anything along those lines. I am so happy to take your suggestions. And hey, that saves me a little bit of trouble too. And hey, we all feel special together. Once again, look me up, markandrewswan.com, and please consider reading my novel, Death in Human Resources, free on deathinhumanresources.com. Thank you for listening to the GSMC Weird News Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask you to please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. If you liked it, I would love to hear it. If you didn't like it, I would still love to hear it. Also, if you can, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you, and have a weird, wonderful week.